Hello and welcome to Eagles Power Hour, your Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. I am your host, Patrick Frakes, and today we are talking some hoops. We are previewing the Eagles matchup with Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado this upcoming Thursday/Saturday. But before we get into that, I got to hit on a few things. One, I've already hit on this a few times, but Eagles Power Hour is now on Instagram, and shorts and other short form content is coming to Instagram. Definitely recommend following that. It's just shorter form, more digestible content for you guys, and hopefully it gives you something that you don't need a full hour to listen to. And check out Eagles Power Hour, support us, and all of that stuff. Second thing, the recruit tracker that I've been working hard on for football is available in Eagles Power Hour's bio in on Twitter as well as on Instagram, and it should be linked in the description of the YouTube video as well as the um, Spotify link. So if you guys want to stay up to date with Eastern Washington football recruiting, definitely hit that up. There's links to every player and every name's Twitter accounts. You could go check them out, check out their 247 accounts if they have one, and just kind of see the type of guys that this Eastern team is recruiting. I put a lot of work into it. I think it's really fun, and I have a fun time with that. But now it's time to get into a little basketball. Before we talk about the men's matchups, we have to give a super special shout out to Eagle women. Jamie Loetta, she won Big Sky Player of the Week for this last week. She averaged something like 20 points and 2 wins over Weber State and Idaho State. She really took over this weekend, and man, she has got to be up there on the Big Sky MVP watch list because she has had an absolutely outstanding season. It has been very, very, very fun to watch as a fan of the Eagle women and watching them more in detail than I really have doing in the past doing the Eagles Power Hours. So, she's been really, really fun to watch, and very happy for her to be named Big Sky Player of the Week for the second time this year. She was co-player of the week earlier this year, and so yeah. But we're gonna move on, and we're gonna hit on the men's matchups first in this one, and then we will transition into the women's matchups, potentially in a little bit less detail on the Northern Colorado game. But I'm really gonna go into detail on the NAU game for the women's side of things because it's a big deal. But to start it off here, I'm going to share the right tab. Eastern has a 2-game set this weekend at Northern Arizona on Thursday. This one tips off at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Something to note, it's an hour earlier than most games that we have here watching Eastern Washington. So just definitely something to keep an eye out for so you guys know, hey, this game tips off an hour earlier than normal. Both games actually tip off at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Sometimes the Saturday games are at 2. Both are at 5 this weekend. Something to note. But we have Northern Arizona on the road in Flagstaff on Thursday, and then Northern Colorado on the road in Greeley on Saturday. Both of these are interesting matchups. One of them definitely more interesting than the other. Northern Colorado is the number 2 team in conference coming into this Saturday game, barring chaos. But we're gonna go into detail here on the NAU side of things first. Just taking a quick peek at the standings. NAU, they're in 8th place right now, out of 10 teams. They have not been amazing. They're 5-8 in the Big Sky. They're definitely not a good team. They're what I called them in our previous preview is they're a insanely okay team. They are not some exceptional team like a Weber State, like a Northern Colorado, like even a Montana. They're not one of those teams in the Big Sky. They are kind of a little bit of a bottom feeder. They're definitely not a good team. And they're also a team that Eastern has matched up with very well in the past, besides the Big Sky tournament. Anyways, but NAU has won 2 of their last 3 games. They got a little bit of momentum going. They beat Montana State at home. They beat them 76-71 on February 10th and February 15th. They beat Sac State on the road in the Nest. Tough place to play for a lot of people. Kind of a bring your own juice environment there. And then they lost to Portland State on the road last Saturday pretty badly, 83-68. So, I don't know if the momentum's a big factor, but you know, we will see. The last matchup between these two teams wasn't pretty. Eastern won this one 85-7. Eastern really dominated this one inside. We were able to out rebound NAU 41-23. Eastern played some outstanding defense in this first half, held NAU to just 25 points, made them shoot something like 33%. They held one of the best scorers in the entire league, Trenton McLaughlin, to just 10 points in this one. He shot 3 for 13. Awesome defensive performance to force him to shoot this poorly. But Carson Basham was electric this game. Carson Basham was really their only offense in this one. Basham is their very talented forward, one of the best forwards in the conference, in my opinion. Very good player. He was really their only answer offensively and on the boards for this game. He really was everything for them in this last matchup in Cheney. Um, you know, the EAGS played like a typical offensive night for them. It was a pretty relatively balanced scoring night. Ethan Bryce had 20 points, Coward 15, 13 for Jones, and then Jake Kyman had 12, 10 off the bench for Eric Strep. Nothing like extraordinary. A nice night for Price, but we've gotten used to him scoring 20 points. Very average, 50% around the board, 30 to something like that percent, 5 threes a half. Pretty standard stuff for Eastern Washington. This one, it really just came down to the rebounding. Eastern was able to out rebound them 41-23, absolutely dominated inside, and their personnel hasn't changed at all. Eastern should be able to still dominate inside. This one, the turnovers was kind of a problem. This one, we turned the ball over 18 times, and it kind of allowed NAU to make a little bit of a run. I know Eastern had as big of a lead as we were up 19 going into halftime, and NAU was able to outscore us in the second half because we turned the ball over a ton in that second half. And so that's something that I would like to see limited in this next game. But kind of looking at NAU more as a whole as a team, they really are a bottom tier team in the Big Sky. They're one of the worst shooting teams in the conference. They're still in 8th place in field goal percentage, and then they're last in 3-point percentage in the league, and then they're just pretty average to bottom tier and everything else. They're 8th in total offense. Defensively, they're a little bit, not really. I mean, total defense, they're second. Total field goals against, they're kind of bottom half of the league, 7th. They just really aren't a great team. I just don't think they have the talent to really match up with Eastern Washington, and that's what we saw in the last one. Another thing, NAU is the worst rebounding team in the conference. They're dead last in rebounding margin. They're at minus 6.6 per game. Very, very poor rebounding team. And it's just because they really only have one true good rebounder, and then everyone else is like okay. But Basham's really the only one that can consistently go get boards, 6 or 7 boards a night. Everyone else is kind of like maybe they'll get a few, maybe they'll get 3 or 4, but it's nothing outstanding, and they're not the best rebounding team. Um, you know, Again, Eastern should be able to dominate this one inside. We have 2 solid big men down inside. Eastern has a size advantage at almost every position, so we should be able to rebound and out rebound this team once again by a lot. Um, you know, NAU is not a very deep team. Looking back at the last matchup, they had 4 players play 34 plus minutes, 4 of their 5 starters. And then Liam Lloyd only played 17 minutes. I think the only reason he did was because he was in big time foul trouble very early in this game. He had 4 fouls very early into the second half. Spokane native Liam Lloyd, I believe. But yeah, he just wasn't. They're not a deep team to the point where they're gonna be able to keep up with Eastern's depth. Eastern is a very deep team, and Eastern's always going to be able to run. They're never going to be really tired, and so that's a huge advantage going in the way of Eastern Washington. Eastern has a very, very, very good matchup with NAU. Um, they're a team though that like if they get extremely hot, they can make some noise, but they just aren't that kind of a team. They do have one of the top scorers in the Big Sky and Trenton McLaughlin. But like I said last time, Trenton McLaughlin did not shoot well in the last time Eastern played them. Trenton McLaughlin is averaging about 18 points in Big Sky play. He's a very good shooter. He's a very good one-on-one shooter. He's really good at like those mid-range fadeaway jumpers. Not similar to Dylan Jones, but like a similar type of thing where he posts up a smaller guard and then kind of fades away with his length and is able to shoot really ball. He's a dangerous shooter, but we didn't see that in the last matchup. It'll be interesting to see um, how he does scoring the ball in this one because last time he was pretty much a non-factor. He was 3 for 13 in that last game. And then I believe Basham is up here in rebounds. He's number 8 in the conference rebounds, but it other than him, they really don't have much going on in the rebounding department. Um, Looking more at their team, just individual stat wise, they really rely heavily on Carson Basham and Trent McLaughlin offensively. They average 32 points for them a game. Um, Basham averaging 14 points as well as 6 rebounds a game. McLaughlin, like we said earlier, 18.5 points a game. He shoots the ball well. A 41% shooter. Carson Basham, a 60% shooter. Most of his will come, within 5 feet of the basket. But you know, Basham also blocks a couple of shots a game usually. He's one of the better shot blockers in the league. Other than that, the talent really drops off. Jaden Jackson's a very solid player. He's averaging just shy of 10 points a game. He's a solid defensive player, but he's nothing special that Eastern hasn't seen before. Basham and McLaughlin are really the two main contributors to this NAU team. And Oakland Fort and oh man, I'm blanking. Their other small guard, CJ Ford, are guys that can hit a couple of threes, but they're not particularly efficient when it comes to that. Both of them shooting, 30%, 36%, 20 in the 20s from 3-point land. They shoot a lot though for the roles that they're in, especially Oakland Fort. He shot the second most field goals on their team and just shooting 36%. Not very efficient. But this NAU team, it comes down to, hey, you need to stop Basham, you need to stop McLaughlin. And luckily, in our last matchup, McLaughlin just wasn't hitting shots. Played good defense, and Coward really eliminated him. I believe it was Coward that was matched up with him most of the game. But you know, McLaughlin is a guy that shoots very well. Basham's a guy that's inside. He has excellent footwork and excellent pick and roll threat. He's the one I'm concerned about more as an Eastern Washington fan is Carson Basham. I think the length on the outside is something that we're going to be able to take away Trenton McLaughlin. And hell, if he's hot, he's going to get his points. That's just the reality of it. He's really good at making contested jumpers. Basham is the one that I'm very concerned about because of some of the lackluster interior defense we've seen in the last few games. Not necessarily in the way that like we're being overpowered inside, but we've had those moments where teams have been able to get the ball inside where they haven't most of the year. And so it'll be interesting to see how Basham does in this next one. Basham had 22 points in the last game. He also had 9 rebounds in the last game, but he fouled out kind of in the second half, later into the second half. We'll see. Fun note about NAU: Big Sky Commissioner's son, Jack Wistersill, is on the NAU Lumberjacks. But this one really, this one shouldn't be close. I think it will be closer than it was in Cheney a few weeks ago. But I think Eastern is matches up with NAU incredibly well, and we should be able to take them down. I'm not particularly anxious about this game. If I expect them to do the sag thing again defensively off of we got to take advantage of that sag off of Ellis Magnuson. Magnuson has to knock down a shot or two. Flagstaff's a weird place to play. They play I think they normally play um in the Sky Dome down there. So in the football stadium, they just kind of have half of I think they have curtains up, and then they just kind of play by one of the grandstands on one side of the dome, which is, I mean, it's an interesting setup, and people have talked about it being kind of tough to shoot down there at times just because of the weird Flagstaff effect. But we'll see. I have hope that Eastern will be able to score the ball relatively well, just because they have been able to in the past on NAU. But shoot, it's definitely possible for Eastern to hit a little bit of a shooting slump, and they're gonna have to pack the paint and get the ball inside, and it's not gonna be able to happen effectively if we can't take advantage of that sag off of Magnuson. Like in that Weber State game, they were sagging off of Luan Watts. They were sagging off of Hartman. They were sagging off of Magnuson. We weren't really able to take much advantage of it. Watts was a little bit, but like we weren't able to take advantage of nobody being within 15 feet of Ellis Magnuson. We've got to hit a couple of those shots just to, even if they're not going to guard him at your 3-point line, get a few feet out from underneath the basket, because it was a killer to our big men who just weren't able to score the ball efficiently inside because they're going up on double teams. And so, I want to see us be able to, one, either knock down a few shots from the outside to set up the inside, which sounds kind of backwards, but you know, if they're sagging, we got to take advantage of it and then attack the inside, force them to sag it again, and then take advantage of it again. You know, Ellis had a solid game versus Idaho State. He had 11 points, but he had a really poor game against Weber State offensively, and he became kind of a liability. I really just I want to see him succeed in the with that sag situation. But like I said, I expect it to be a little closer than the game in Cheney, but I like a 10 to 12 point victory for Eastern. I think Eastern's going to be able to pull this one away at the end, just kind of out talent them. But if Trenton McLaughlin and Basham both have really good games, if we can't take away one of the two or both of them, we're going to really have a tough time pulling this one out. Well, we'll see. We're going to have a tough time winning by 10, but I really like Eastern's chances. I think we're going to be able to just out physical this team. And so that's what I'm hoping to see in this one. Transitioning to the Northern Colorado game. Northern Colorado is coming in number 2 in the Big Sky. This is a really big matchup. Northern Colorado is number 2 in the Big Sky. They're coming in 9-4. This is the team that is closest to Eastern Washington's heels in the Big Sky. Eastern has a 2-game lead, and this game is huge because a loss to Northern Colorado, barring chaos on Thursday with an Idaho win or an Eastern loss, or either way, Idaho plays Northern Colorado on Thursday. But barring chaos on Thursday, Northern Colorado has a chance to close the lead of Eastern Washington down to 1. If Northern Colorado can beat Eastern, it would make Eastern 10 or 11-3 and make Northern Colorado 10-4. It's a 1-point lead for Eastern Washington, meaning any week they can tie it, and I believe they would take first place. So, we really want to win this one down there in Greeley, but it's gonna be a tough game. UNC is a very good team, especially at home. They're a very explosive offensive team. They have one of the best players in the whole conference in front runner for the Big Sky MVP. If you ask a lot of people that watch Big Sky basketball, St. Thomas. St. Thomas is very, very, very effective. He was a transfer from Loyola. Really, I think it was Loyola Chicago. Really good player. Can absolutely take over a game. But hitting on the last matchup. Here it is. Hitting on the last matchup, Eastern won a close one. It was a little bit lower scoring for Eastern Washington standards, 77-74 win for Eastern Washington up in Cheney. It was one of Eastern's toughest nights shooting all year, from outside at home anyways. They went 6 for 12 from deep, or 6 for 26, 6 for 26 from deep. Shot a lot of shots and didn't make very many of them. 23% from 3. Not a great performance for Eastern Washington standards. From 3, typically we want to shoot closer to 30 to 40% from 3. And I mean, it's crazy, but that's what we've come to expect from this team. They're very talented. And so Eastern went into the locker room with a 7-point lead. They were shooting okay. They were able to get the ball inside relatively well in that first half. Northern Colorado wasn't quite as effective as normal. They turned the ball over a couple times, but Jaron really had a really nice game in this one. One of Northern Colorado's guards, but Eastern was able to really take care of the ball in this one. This one was won by taking care of the ball. We were able to win the turnover battle 13-9. We only turned the ball over 9 times. Very, very impressive for this Eastern team that loves to turn the ball over. And we were able to score 17 points off of turnovers to Northern Colorado's 12, and won this game by 3 points. So, that to me, that was the game. That was what won this game. Everything else is very deadlock close. Rebound margins very close, or just the rebounds in general. There was not a glaring difference in field goal percentage. They hit a couple more threes than us, but other than that, We shot free throws better than them. They kind of had a poor free throw shooting game. Other than that, it was a pretty close game in terms of statistics. I guess they had 7 steals to our 4, but we kind of countered that with blocking 6 shots to their 0. And so, you know, this game, Jaron Riley, their transfer from Samford, he's a guard for them, that a very effective offensive player. He scored 26 points in this one, had 4 assists. St. Thomas went off in this one. He really took over that second half, and he made this one a game late there. He had 20 points and 10 rebounds. He's a very good player, but it felt like a very evenly matched game besides the turnovers. And so, looking forward to the next matchup, one, Coward has to score more than 7 points. He's just your best player, and your bet on the team has to be able to score more than 7 points. And that was kind of their strategy, was to take Coward away. But I would like to see Coward have a little bit better of a night scoring, especially, I mean, at home he typically shoots better than that. Um, and then we have to take care of the ball. We have to have a similar formula. We have to take care of the ball. We cannot give Northern Colorado extra possessions. They're a very explosive offensive team, and they're going to take advantage of it. Like I keep repeating, NAU is um, one of the top offensive teams in the league. I'd actually argue them and Eastern are probably number one in offense. NAU is number one in total offense. They're scoring 82.1 points per game, just in front of Eastern Washington, who's scoring 81.9. Very, very close there. But Eastern is number one in field goal percentage. Northern Colorado is number 2 in field goal percentage. They have 2 players in the top 10 in scoring in the Big Sky. In St. Thomas, he's averaging 20 points a game, and then as well, TO REESE is also averaging 15.8 points per game. He only had 8 points in the last game. He wasn't like a major impact guy, but he's a guy that's really come on later this season, and he's been scoring at a very high clip. They also have, I can't remember. I'm having a bad moment here. They have Brock Wisney. He's also in the top 25 and scoring with 11.5% or 11.5 points per game. They have 4 players averaging 11 plus points. They're kind of similar offensively to Eastern, where they have a lot of players um, that contribute. But the thing with them is they have like the star power that can just take over the game. And St. Thomas, that dude is special. He's a special talent. He averages 20 points, 10 rebounds, like I was saying. He's also top 5 in the Big Sky in steals per game. Very, very effective player. Reeves averaging 15 points a game. Brock Wisney, one of their posts, a very efficient shooter. He's scoring 11.5 points per game on 67% shooting. And then Jaron Riley, like we hit on a little bit earlier, one of their better scoring guards. He's only averaging 11 points per game. He had 26 in the last matchup, but he's a very effective scorer. He's a very effective passer. He's averaging 5 assists per game. One of the guys up there with Els Magnuson at the top of the conference in assists per game. But this is the downfall of this Northern Colorado team. Their defense has been kind of poor this year. They are dead last in points per game against. They've given up 1,000 points on the year. The only other team to do that has been Portland State. They give up 77 points per game, and it's dead last in the conference. Eastern's giving up 71 per game, which is why Eastern has such an advantage in scoring margin. Eastern has a 10-point scoring margin advantage, or Eastern has a 10-point scoring margin versus Northern Colorado's 4-point scoring margin, and it's just because Northern Colorado's defense has been they're pretty middle of the pack in every other defensive category. I guess they're number 3 in opponent field goal percentage, but they're number 4 in opponent 3-point percentage. But they're not an elite defense by any means. They're a solid rebounding team. They rebound the ball effectively. They got Wisney, they got St. Thomas, they got other big guys that are able to rebound the ball effectively. This is not like NAU where Eastern has this major advantage on the inside. But I still think Eastern has the advantage on the inside just because Eastern's big men are so talented. But I guess one other small advantage for Eastern is the free throw shooting. Northern Colorado has been kind of a poor free throw shooting team, and it kind of bit them in the butt later in that game. They missed a lot of free throws that they could have made to make that game a win for them, even if they hit more free throws in that one. But other than that, there's not a ton of stats that really stand out. They're number 2 in assist to turnover ratio, but they're not a team that forces like a ton of turnovers per game. Um, they're kind of mid to bottom tier in terms of turnover margin. So, it's a very, very good team, very elite offense, but they're not an elite defense. And I think Eastern has an elite offense and a good to great defense. Depending on the night, this we can't give up. We cannot give up 90 points to this UNC team because if they score 90 points, we're not keeping up with that. This Northern Colorado team, if you start out slow, they're going to be very, very hard to keep up with and catch up with. They're not like a Weber State where they get super streaky. They're relatively consistent. Typically, they average their 40 to 50% all game, and then that's kind of where they stay when it comes to shooting. I mean, they've had their streaky moments, but they're not a team that you can come back from 15 points down. I would be extremely surprised if they came back from 15 points down. Fun fact: this Northern Colorado team came back from like 20 points down versus Portland State the other night to go to overtime, and then Portland State just whooped their ass in overtime. So, Northern Colorado is a team that can score a lot of points very quickly, and so is Eastern. But I think Northern Colorado has a little bit of an advantage offensive firepower wise with a guy like St. Thomas, a guy like Jaron Riley, a guy like Dijon or what's his name, DeJour Reeves. Like those are guys that can just take over a game and really score a lot of points in a hurry. And even Wisney is going to be a very consistent 12 points, 11, 12 points per game for them. They're going to get their 75 to 85 points, especially at home. It's going to be tough to stop them from that. Eastern has to keep up. And like I was hitting on, the defensive effort has to be better, but I think being able to score is just as important. Um, we can't have the slow rotations because a lot of that Weber State game where we gave up the 90 points, it was rotations that were just a beat slow, like just a beat slow, and they were making us pay. And Northern Colorado's a team that can do that same thing, especially if they're on that night and at home. They're gonna be able to beat us if we're giving them off like open good looks all night. So we're going to have to play good defense and to limit that. We can't have a defensive effort like that Weber game. We can't have the slow rotations. We have to take care of the ball. That's how we won that last game. If we're not taking care of the ball, we can't give this team extra possessions. But because giving them extra possessions is just giving them 3 points because they're a team that's going to score at least 50%. Their turnovers, they're going to score at least 50% of the time off of a turnover. That's just kind of been who they are all year. We have to be consistent offensively. We can't have a big dry spell because they're going to build a big lead. Because they're going to consistently they're going to be able to score their points. And we can't have a super poor shooting half like we had at Weber. We can't have a half where we just get completely outscored because we're not going to be able to come back from that. That Weber State comeback performance was a huge anomaly for this, like for a typical team. Like being able to come back from 17 down isn't going to happen very often. And so we can't have that really bad one half where we're just horrible. Got to be consistent. Get our 40 to 50% from the field. That's what I'd like to see. 30 to 40% from deep. Hit like 5 or 6 threes per half would be excellent. That's a lot, but like that's what I would like to see from this Eastern team. Be very nice. Again, we're gonna have to take advantage of the sag. I kind of am expecting to see the sag off of Ellis Magnuson the rest of the season because that Weber State game was really exposed our offense. It felt like they scored 84 points in that game, but it really exposed the weakness and how to attack this Eastern defense. And you do that by one, Eastern just has to not be hot, which is tough. But if Eastern isn't hitting outside of shots, you literally can just not guard a few players because some of these guys aren't shooters. Ellis Magnuson isn't a shooter. Hartman isn't a shooter. A guy like Watts isn't a shooter, and they just won't guard us on the 3-point line, and that just leads to open looks that it leads to the paint getting crowded, which makes it tough to score inside, and if you're not hitting outside shots, it's tough. So we have to take advantage of the sag. We need Ellis Magnuson to knock down a shot or two from the outside when he's wide open. Either that or we have to have some sort of scheme to attack it. because it's gonna really hurt our offensive production if we're allowing them to just sag a big man off of Ellis Magnuson all night and he's not gonna shoot the ball. Um, Got to win the rebound battle. It was a very close one in the last one, but Eastern is the better rebounding team. We have to win the rebounding battle, have to win the turnover battle. Typical basic basketball like IQ, turnovers and rebounds are important, but that's true. That's what we got to do. We got to win those battles, and I have faith Eastern can win this one out. I have faith Eastern can win this one. I think Eastern has the better defense, but I think Northern Colorado probably has the better offense, and so it's a pretty close battle offensively for these two teams, and then it's not very close on defense. That's why I think Eastern should be able to win this one. But if you have a poor shooting slump or something like that, it is going to be very tough for the Eagle men to pull out this one on the road against a very, very, very electric Northern Colorado Bears team. But like I said earlier, this is a game for a big time game in terms of the scope of the Big Sky this year. Eastern wins this one; they extend their lead to 3 or 4 games in the Big Sky. I believe they would extend it to it'd be 3 or 4 games. I can't quite remember. Extending their lead from 2 games to 3 or 4 games. I'm blanking for the moment, but it would be huge to really extend that gap and give yourself a little leeway for a poor shooting night like that Weber State game, like that Montana State game. Looking ahead, we have next weekend we have the Montana schools next weekend, which is going to be tough. They're at home, thankfully. I will be at the Montana game for sure, but it's going to be tough. So we got to um, give ourselves a little more cushion. Ideally, I would love to beat Montana State at home, but and Montana at home, obviously. But yeah, I think that's all we got for the men's side of things. I'm going to cut here, and then we're going to break down the women's matchups. We might do it in a little bit reverse order because this NAU game is a big deal on Thursday. So we might hit on that to end it and put the nail in the coffin. But yeah, we're going to cut here and yeah, go Eagles. Okay, so on the women's side of things, we're going to do it a little backwards just because this NAU game is such a big game. I'm saving the best for last. But we're going to hit on these two women's games. So we're playing Northern Arizona at home Thursday at 6 p.m. at Reese Court. This is a big, big game. This is a game for first place in the Big Sky, sole possession of first place in the Big Sky. This is one you guys need to get to. For those of you that are going to tune out for the women's section, this is one you guys have to. If you're going to make it to one women's basketball game all year, make it this one. Get to Reese. This is going to be a big time game, big time matchup, and these women need a great crowd for this one. And then we're playing at Northern Colorado at 2 p.m. on Saturday. It's nice that the games don't tip off at the same exact time for my sake, for someone that's to rewatch games. But yeah, so that's the schedule for this weekend. In terms of previewing it, I'm going to do it a little backwards. I'm going to hit the Northern Colorado game first, just because I want to save the Northern Colorado matchup best for last here. But looking at the standings, Northern Colorado is a good team. Northern Colorado, they're middle of the pack of the Big Sky right now. They're in 5th place, but they're more talented than a 5th place team. They've been a little bit streaky. They're more talented than a 7-6 team, in my opinion. But their team, they have the talent. They swept the Montana schools at home, and then they got swept by the Montana schools on the road. They're very streaky, is something I've noticed with them, and I think a lot of it depends on how their offense is going. They're a slow it down type of offense, and so sometimes if they're not hitting shots, it really comes back to bite them. But hitting on the last game here, I'm gonna pull up the box score. This last game was a tough matchup. It was a real close game, and it was a close game throughout this one. It was real close at halftime, and then Eastern had a really nice third quarter, was able to build a little bit of a lead, and then it was a close one though. This was by no means Eastern domination. This Northern Colorado team is, like I said, much more talented than 7-6 might lead you to believe. This game, Eastern played a very consistent game offensively, which was really nice to see in this one. They stayed about 15 to 20 points every quarter. They got their 68 to 70 points. Very nice offensive performance for these Eagle women. They shot right around 40%, on 25% from three, but that's okay. Like they had a very nice performance offensively, and this was something that was very exciting to see. Something to note: this was the game that Jacinta Buckley went down with injury, and we haven't seen her since. Um, and I think that might be important for this matchup, but we'll hit on that a little later. Um, this was a game where Eastern was able to win the rebound battle, 39 to 32 here. They were able to win the turnover battle. Eastern turned the ball over 13 times to their 16, and Eastern was able to take advantage of the turnovers. Northern Colorado only scored 12 points off of 13 turnovers. Eastern was able to score 20 points off of 16 turnovers, and they scored 8 more points off of turnovers. Eastern won the game by 6. To me, that was the changing factor in this game. That was what happened in this third quarter that allowed Eastern to build their lead and really take over in the second half. Just quick box score things. Jamie Loda had a really nice game in this one, 16 points. She had an assist and a steal and a block shot, 3 rebounds. Nice game for her. Aaliyah Alexander had 13 points, 17 points for Jaleesa Lawrence off the bench, one of her best games of the year, as well as a steal and 3 rebounds. But like I said, this is a game where Jacinta Buckley went down. She had 9 points before going down with injury, and you know, it's it's been a different Eastern team since. Not in the sense of this whole team depends on her, but in terms of kind of where teams have been attacking Eastern Washington. Um, since Eastern Washington has lost Jacinta Buckley, teams with bigs have been able to take advantage of size mismatches inside and really beat Eastern in the rebounding battle. And the way you beat Northern Colorado, you have to win the rebounding battle. You have to win the turnover margin, and you have to disrupt their offense. So not having Buckley could potentially be a little bit concerning. Um, I mean, I'm not too insanely anxious about this one, especially that it's at home, and I do think Eastern Washington will be able to win this one. But there is kind of some interesting matchup things to think about. Northern Colorado is kind of a slow it down offense type team. They're an okay defensive team. Looking at some of the Big Sky stats here, they're number 4 in the conference in scoring, but they're kind of a middle of the pack defensive team. Nothing exceptional defensively, but this is where they really make their living here. They're the top team in the conference in terms of field goal percentage, and they've shot the least amount of shot attempts in the entire conference this year in conference play, anyways. They very slow it down. They trust their offense. They really like to feed their big women. Anaya Hall is one of their best players on the team. She is a forward that is very very good player for them. I'll hit more on her later, but they like to trust their offense and go really slow. And to beat that, you have to disrupt their efficiency. They're a very efficient team. They rely on that efficiency as a team. And if you can disrupt that efficiency, like Eastern was able to do in that third quarter in Greeley earlier this year, we will be able to beat this team. Something to note. Oh shoot, I already hit on what I was gonna say. Something to note. That's a goof up on me. Anyways, producing public. But no, the Colorado team, like I said, it's a talented team, and they trust their offense. They're coached well. It really comes down to how efficient they are on that night and how good their defense plays. They've been a middle of the pack defense, and so it's nothing necessarily spectacular. They're number 2 in 3-point field goal percentage. They're number 1 in team field goal percentage, and so you really kind of expect a lot of you know slow and slow possessions, kind of a slower, ugly game with the way these two teams play. They're both Eastern's more of a defensive first team that is kind of not the most efficient offense. And Northern Colorado's a slow, efficient offense with not the best defensive team in the world. And so I almost kind of expect this one to be in the 50s or 60s, probably a pretty low scoring game. Um, you know, there's not necessarily like any huge advantages to one of the other teams in the rebound side of things. The rebound margin. Northern Colorado is technically a better rebounding team than Eastern, but again, we'll talk about that matchup in a little bit. But hitting on some of Northern Colorado's impact players. Um, Delaney Byrne is probably their most talented offensive player. She's averaging 13 points as well as 7 rebounds. She's like a tall, long wing that's a really good shooter. She's shooting just shy of 50%, or just shy of 40% on the year from three. Um, Very nice scorer for them, good rebounder for them. I mentioned Anaya Hall. Anaya Hall is a very talented post player for them. She is 6'3" tall, very good rebounder. She rebounds at a rate 6 rebounds per game in Big Sky play. She also has 11 shots blocked, just shy of 1 per game. Very efficient. She's shooting over 50% on the year. She's averaging just shy 11.6 points per game. And then Hannah Semitol was the player coming in this year that I think most NAU or UNC fans were expecting to kind of like take over and really be the player. She's not been exceptional. Very good player. 11 points per game, just shy of 11 points per game, I should say. Shooting about 40% from the field, but she hasn't taken over this year like some Big Sky fans thought she would. Hannah Semitol is one of the most talented players in the conference, so it'll be interesting to see how she plays because she's been a little streaky this year. She's had some not as great offensive showings, and one of those was versus Eastern Washington this year. Semitol only had 6 points in that game, and Semitol is typically one of their um, best players in terms of scoring. But Semitol's been assisting at a pretty high rate, 3 assists per game. She had 6 in the last matchup, and she's a good defensive player. She's 21 steals on 13 games, just shy of 2 per game. So she's still a good player and affects the game in a lot of ways. I think people just expected her to offensively do more, but she does lead the team in field goals attempted. She shoots the ball a lot, and a lot of their plays are directed through her. So it'll be interesting to see how she plays. Those are their main 3 contributors. Seneca also averaging about 10 points a game. Um, you know, Efficient shooter and shoots well, but nothing extremely out of the ordinary. But the real big question in this game is, will Easter be able to shut down Anaya Hall inside? Anaya Hall, she had a number of points in that last game. I'm gonna quickly look in stats department. She had 10 points in the last game. It's 7 rebounds. Will Eastern be able to shut her down without Jacinta Buckley on the floor? Jacinta Buckley is so important inside. No, she's not like a very I don't know. I wouldn't call her a true big, but she's very important in the defense down low and the rebounding down low and being able to kind of take away bigger players down below. And this is not a knock on the players that do play the two big spots on the team right now, Bella Hayes and Millie Knowles, but they have not been the strongest defensively on the inside, and they haven't been the best rebounders on the inside so far this year. And so it'll be interesting to see if we're gonna be able to stop Anaya Hall at all this year in this game, because if Anaya Hall is gonna be able to score inside easily and get rebounds all day, this could be a tough matchup for Eastern Washington. We gotta win the rebound battle, and with a big player like Anaya Hall, she presents a really tough matchup for Eastern. I bet Bella Hayes will play a lot more than she did in the last game just because of the size. Bella Hayes matches up better size wise than Millie Knowles does. But we're gonna have to see. This is gonna be a big question in this game, and I'm hoping that's the game plan for Eastern, because Anaya Hall is gonna be a big, big, big part of this game. Um, you know, like I said earlier, you gotta disrupt UNC's efficiency. If you can force them to turn the ball over, miss shots, um, typically you're going to be able to beat them. But if they're being efficient and you're not scoring efficiently, they're typically able to beat you. They're a team that can kind of win a game any night and lose a game any night, and they play in a lot of close games. But I like Eastern's chances in this one. Interesting stat: Northern Colorado was ninth in turnover margin. Eastern Washington is first in turnover margin. Ninth out of 10 teams is about as bad as you can get. Um, you know, I really like that specific matchup for Eastern Washington. That's how they won the last game, and I think that's how they're going to be able to win the second game in Cheney. I also would like to see a consistent offensive performance, which is something I think they're going to be able to do at home. But yeah, again, Northern Colorado game, 2 p.m. on Saturday. Now we're going to shift our focus to the Thursday game, which is first, but I just wanted to hit on this NAU one second. This is a huge game on Thursday in Reese Court. Eastern Washington is hosting the other first place team in the Big Sky, the team that Eastern is tied with for first place in the Big Sky at 11-2, Northern Arizona. This game is a battle for sole possession of first place heading into the final week of the season. Final week and a half, I guess. Final 3 or 4 games of the season. This is a huge one. This is the 1 seed or the 2 seed, and I'm really hoping for a win in this one. Looking at I guess I should have been sharing the basketball standings, but Northern Arizona, they're showing as underneath Eastern Washington, but I mean, I'd technically flip them because NAU has a tiebreaker over Eastern Washington right now because NAU beat Eastern Washington earlier this season. Looking at the score of that game, this was a tough one. NAU had the lead most way through this one. They had actually a pretty big lead at halftime, and then Eastern stormed back in the fourth quarter, was able to tie it, force overtime, and then NAU just kind of dominated overtime, and they ended up pulling this one away at home in overtime. But it was a furious comeback from these Eagle women. It was an impressive comeback from these Eagle women, and you know, this is when we didn't expect them to be able to come back from being down by so many points. They're down what? Quick math. They were down 13 points at halftime, right? Is that mathing right? Yeah, 13 points at halftime. And so it was very impressive for them to be able to come back and force overtime. Jaleesa Lawrence hit some clutch free throws to be able to send it to overtime late there. But before I talk more about this game, I got to hit on and I'll just keep talking about the game. Sorry. Um this game, Lee Alexander had 31 points, 20 points for Jamie Loetta. Both of them had awesome games. Loetta also had 6 assists, 11 rebounds, double-double for Jamie Loetta. But the game was lost here because we couldn't stop Sophie Glancy inside. And I mean, NAU was hot from everywhere. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in double figures in this one. They hit 10 threes in this one, 4 of them coming from Leah Beatty. Leah Beatty, very good player. But Glancy was the difference maker, especially in overtime. She just absolutely took over. And this was the first game without Jacinta Buckley earlier this year, and it really showed. We had our dry spells offensively. This second quarter was a huge dry spell for the Eagle women, and they just I've hit on this before, but it's the consistency. I would rather have 15 to 20 points every quarter than a 6 and then a 27, just because it allows teams to build leads that are insurmountable. And this one, of course, was surmountable, but this Eastern team just came up a little short at the end. They went on their dry spell in overtime. And the dry spells can happen at any time in the game, and that's why I just kind of wish we would be a consistent team for all 4 quarters, and that's what we've seen the last few days or last few games. So I'm hopeful that can be a possibility going forward, but we will see. I'm it's going to be a tough one, but excuse that cut. I just sneezed really hard. Um, looking at NAU, what they've done this year, they've been almost unstoppable in Big Sky play. The only teams that have beat them was a extremely hot Montana team early in the year, and then NAU lost a weird one last week. They on Thursday last week they lost a game at home to Sac State. Sac State is in ninth place in the Big Sky, or tied for eighth place in the Big Sky with Weber State. But they've been a bad team this year, and they've been coming along later in the year. But Sac State beat them at home in Flagstaff, and that's interesting to see them lose to a ninth place team. And then they only scored 66 points in that game. They were really kind of slow offensively, and then NAU responded Saturday by just absolutely kicking the shit out of Portland State, beating them like 89 to 60 something. And so, you know, it makes me wonder what NAU team are we going to see on Thursday? Are we going to get very hot 89 points NAU, or are we going to get 66 points NAU? They've been the 80 points per game NAU more often, but hey, we never know. I'm interested to see where this one goes when it comes to NAU's offense because like we've said they're the best offensive team in the league this year. They're first in points per game, they're second in field goal percentage. They're really one of the best offensive teams in the entire league. Here, I'll share the stats page for the online videos. First in points per game, kind of a middle of the pack defense though. They're actually ninth in points per game against. Their margin is number 3 in the league. Eastern's number 1 in scoring margin. NAU is number 2 in field goal percentage, just behind Northern Colorado, but they're kind of middle of the pack, 6th place in the field goal percentage against. You know, they're almost an exact inverse of Eastern, where Eastern's been kind of the middle of the pack offense team and then a really good defensive team. NAU's been a really good offensive team and kind of a middle of the pack defensive team. And so, it's an interesting matchup, and we will see how it goes. Looking at some of their impact players, they kind of have impact players at every position. They have someone that's a top of the Big Sky in almost everything. Um, Glancy, Sophie Glancy, probably the front runner for Big Sky MVP right now. On the women's side of things, her and Jamie Loetta will probably be 2 of the top 3 or 4 players in that voting. But she's 3rd in the conference in rebounds per game. She leads the Big Sky in scoring in terms of points per game. She's averaging 18.69 nice points per game. That she is averaging almost 8 rebounds a game. That's 3rd in rebounds per game in the Big Sky. She leads the Big Sky in field goal percentage at 54%. She also is 2nd in block shots per game at 15 shots blocked per game. She's just absolutely stuffing the stat sheet. She's been exceptional this year. She's just been phenomenal. She's 18 points per game. She's been unstoppable in the post, and she is who freaks me out, makes me nervous as an Eastern Washington fan. Sophie Glancy is one of the most talented bigs in the league, and probably our primary big defender is out this game. So it'll be interesting to see what Eastern does defensively to counter that. Are we going to be able to stop her at all? I don't know. Sophie Glancy was able to grab 5 offensive rebounds in the last game, and we just could not stop her, especially in overtime. We could not stop her without Jacinta Buckley in there. The matchups weren't in our favor. So it'll be interesting to see what Eastern does defensively, what Jody Gleason draws up defensively, if they're going to double Glancy. If you double Glancy, NAU has the shooters around the outside to be able to take advantage of it. Leah Beatty, she is top 4 or 5, and she's top 4 in 3-point percentage and 3-point shots made this year. She's shooting, let me see, she's shooting 41% from 3 this year, and she's made 34 of 82 attempts. Very good 3-point shooter. Very good just scorer in general. She's averaging 13 points per game this year, 5 rebounds per game this year. And I mean, they've just been a very, very good team. She's also averaging 3 assists, BD. Emily Robideau has been one of their leaders for a long time at NAU. She's had a tougher year offensively this year, but efficiency-wise anyways, but she's still averaging 11 points per game on 38% shooting, 5 rebounds a game. They rebound the ball very well. And then, Olivia Moran, Taylor Feldman is actually a really good player passing the ball. She's top 5 in assists and assist to turnover ratio in the Big Sky. Really good passer there. Not as big of a scorer, but she's averaging about 4 assists per game. 3.7, I guess, is the official number there. Grace Beasley with 20 steals off the bench in just 6 games. Oh, wait, no, that's not Grace Beasley. Nia Moran has 20 steals in 13 games. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a tough matchup for these Eagle women, especially if Jacinta Buckley's not back. Having her back would be absolutely massive, but I'm kind of assuming she won't be. I don't know. I haven't heard anything when it comes to her status in terms of being good or not. So, um, it'll be interesting. I think the matchup inside is where this game goes. And I mean, if NAU is shooting lights out from outside like they kind of were in that first game, it's going to be tough to beat them. But I think Eastern has the defensive firepower to be able to do this. And being at home, I really like Eastern's chances to have one of their consistent offensive performances that we've been wanting to see all year, especially after a few in a row. If we can shoot relatively consistent offensively, maybe we get Jaleesa Lawrence more involved in the offense, take a little bit of load off of Aaliyah Alexander, but she's going to have to be huge scoring the ball. Jamie Loetta she's going to have to be huge defensively on the perimeter, limiting those 3-point shots. But I think this game comes down to mostly the matchup inside. If we put JD Martin on her, or if we put Millie Knowles on Glancy, or if we put Bella Hayes on Glancy, or if they just go to a zone, who knows? Eastern might mix it up and go to a zone or a double team scheme, but if they double team, they're going to have to be able to close out quick. And, because this NAU team can really hit the three at a high rate. They shot 34% in the last game. That's Eastern. They shot 38% in the last game. And that's including an 0 for 5 fourth quarter for them. So, we've got to see the consistent offensive game from these Eastern women, and we've got to be able to see, a nice defensive performance. You got to limit the threes. We'll see. Inside, I'm worried. I think the inside battle definitely the advantage goes to NAU, but I think the perimeter battle goes to Eastern. We have the better guards: Aaliyah Alexander, Jamie Loetta, Jaleesa Lawrence on the wing there. They've been very good players, and they've had a couple of really nice games in a row now. So I'm hopeful that this Eastern team will be able to pick off NAU, but we will see. It's going to be a tough matchup for these Eagle women, and they're gonna have to bring their A game and play their butts off. But like I said at the beginning of the segment, get your butts to Reese for this NAU game. Big game. It's a battle for sole possession of first place. I have faith that they're going to be able to pull this one out. I always have faith in Eastern Washington, and I have faith that they're going to be able to pull this one out. It's going to be a very tough game. They need the energy from the crowd. They need the loud building on defense and all of that jazz. So get to Reese if you can. I unfortunately cannot make it to Reese. I have class that day, but man, I would love to get to Reese. I want everyone else to get to Reese, and yeah, big game. But without further ado, I think that's about all we got for this one. Thank you guys for listening. Again, Eastern Washington excuse me, Eagles Power Hour is now on Instagram. Definitely go check that out. Go check out my recruit tracker that I've been posting. Keep liking and reposting the tweets. Thank you guys. But yeah, that's all we got for this one, guys. Thanks you so much for listening. Pack Reese for these Eagle women. They deserve it. Games at 2 on Saturday and at 5 on Saturday, a little bit different than normal. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and go Eags.